Hi, I'm Erin Sarofsky.
And I'm Austin Shaw.
This is Between the Keyframes. Peace.
We are live.
We are live recorded.
We are live
I
recorded.
heard that somewhere. Yeah. Well, hi Austin.
Hey Erin.
It's good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Yeah. Okay. So for everybody else, welcome back to what is the second season of Between the Keyframes. We are in a new year, but we're still home, so nothing's changed. And we're going to start the second season off by reflecting on the first season and what we've learned about ourselves and the community, talk about some of the comments, and dive in. This episode is going to be called Reflections.
Right.
So, yeah, let's jump in.
Let's do it. So Erin, this kind of content, what have we learned about this kind of content in the industry and what's out there and what maybe makes us a little different?
Yeah, so I think we've always wanted to be a little bit different than what other people were making and putting out there. And I think our point of view is pretty different because, you know, if you look at the landscape of what's out there, you have a lot of conferences and speakers and other podcasts, but they focus on either work as inspiration. So like, look at this amazing work. Don't you want to be like this? Don't you want to make this kind of stuff? And that, like, you know, as you say, kind of creates that desire to be a motion designer, and especially like an elite motion designer. Other kind of content focuses on process, very tutorial oriented. And then you have these other, especially podcasts that tend to be very guest focused. So finding these elite artists and interviewing them, talking about what their passions and inspirations are, how they got there. And then of course, talking about the work that they make that is so, you know, visible. So I think for us, we're trying to teach people, or talk about, not so much teach, but talk about how to navigate the industry from an artistic, an emotional, and a business perspective. And that's the between stuff, you know?
Absolutely. And
yeah.
And not that, and all of those highlights that you talked about, those are super important, right? Like the amazing pieces, the feature articles or interviews, the tutorials, like we need all those things, but those are essentially keyframes. Right? Mm-hmm. And we want to examine what goes on between those. What's the line that connects them? What's that path like? How you get there?
I love that as a visual too, because when I think about, you know, the curves between your keyframes, like very practically speaking, there's ups, there's down, there eases in, there's eases out. And that like makes me think about, you know, the process. You know, there are ups and downs. You do ease in. Sometimes it takes reflecting on the work you've done to realize how far you've come, you know, right. Or leaving a job and going to a new job or something like that. And that's kind of the space we're playing in.
Sometimes it's a hold keyframe. You feel stuck.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a forced quit.
Restart.
I love it. I love that. Okay. So what else? What do you think that we, in terms of like reflecting on the things we've learned, what do you think we're trying to talk about that other people aren't, you know, specifically?
I think one of the areas is vulnerability, right? Being vulnerable, right? And just how important that is. And there's a ton of literature out there. There's a lot of really cool stuff around it. But I know for me, being vulnerable is what makes us human, and it's also that area where we can grow. And even when bringing speakers in to talk to students, to talk to my classes, that's always the best when they get real, when a speaker gets real, because then it shows a student it's like, oh, they're just a person. They're just a person a little further along the line. I can potentially get where they are. And then even for me, this, you know, I've adapted this moniker my students have given me, hashtag middle-aged in the digital age, middle-aged in the digital age. And
so good.
And I like it because it's, you know, I've had to do that. That's been a vulnerability for me, where some of the newer social media going back a few years when these platforms were coming out, Instagram, just having to kind of ask the students like, hey, help me get on these platforms. And that being vulnerable like that has allowed me to basically get on the train, right, of what's happening, and to be able to evolve with this industry and stay relevant, and also just to expand my practice and I don't know, keep growing, keep learning.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. Like, vulnerability is probably key amongst, like, it's like the top tier thing that we're talking about. You know what I mean? And hopefully it's coming through when we talk about, like, the mistakes we've made, when we talk about honest self-criticism and honest industry criticism. Not that we have all the answers, but just in talking about it. And then especially as we talk about things like individual decorum, like how, an artist can, function best practices wise in a business, So I think that's really, really cool.
Well, I think there's a sort of a right sizeness to that too, that is just kind of the expectations I find a lot of students put on themselves. And we've talked about that idea too. It's like what, students think they need to be at a certain level of expertise, going into the industry. And really all they need to do is show potential, right? Have some of their skills, like be able to kind of enter into a workforce, right? That's okay. They're not expected to be masters or experts.
That's great. And I think that gets into the next thing that we've learned, which is who our audience is and how they're different than we expected. I know me and you always talk about, like, how you and I kind of bridge that gap between educational point in somebody's career and the professional point, and how we can kind of speak to that transition. So I thought that we would be pretty focused on that, kind of helping people ease into oh my god,
ease into your career.
But I think we've realized that we're also talking to the established professional that is potentially looking for what's next. So you're a great animator, you're a great artist, you have been full-time somewhere or thinking about going freelance. Like, you're cluing into that full-time freelance episode to hear what's going on, or to listen to the passion projects episode if you're feeling like stuck in your career, or just like you're not making all the things you want to make, or whatever. You know what I mean? So I feel like we've got a bunch of listeners that way. And then lastly, I'm very surprised about this, but like the old timers are coming out of the woodwork, like our age, so not that old, but like old timers as far as the industry is going, saying, hey, I listened to that episode and it like really spoke to me. And they've been doing it for a long time. And I think it's because we are getting vulnerable and talking about our careers in a bigger picture way, and not just project to project,
Absolutely. And I think it's something I spend a lot of time thinking about. I teach professional practices classes. I work with students who are preparing to enter their careers, and that is such a critical time, those first few months after graduation, first 3 to 6 months, that I'm always like, you gotta, that transition time, you have to get your foot in the door somewhere, right? No matter if it's an internship, if it's a junior freelance, like whatever it is. And I mean, part of it is about that experience, and it's about networking, it's about building the real, but really I think the thing is about shaping the identity of yourself as a professional, right? And the only way to do it is to be in that environment in some way, even if it's like, for me, getting coffee, scanning things, and then getting to jump on and look at a senior artist working on something and ask some questions. And as you were saying about the more established professional, for them, I think it is like, when you're, now what? Is this it? Right? What do I do here? And whether it is, do I want to level up? Do I want to do a passion project? Or is it maybe I need to find an adjacent career? Maybe something that's aligned but somewhat different. Know about that, right? Yeah. I mean, here I am. I sort of have the dual career of freelance commercial artist and educator, right? And finding fulfillment with that balance.
Yeah. And author.
That's right. Just finishing up textbook number 2. We'll talk more about that in some future episodes. But the other thing, this demystification, right? And
thing that we've learned.
Yeah. So I maybe talk a little bit about that. Like, what is this demystification process?
Yeah, I mean, like, we've definitely learned that we're demystifying what I think is kind of a closed door industry a little bit. We're kind of like creating a peek inside without somebody being in a studio or in a corporate setting or something like that. So we're just kind of, I always think, like, when I started this career, I didn't know if I would make money. I had like absolutely no idea. I did it because I was passionate about it and I enjoyed it. But I think, you know, when you go into a career in the arts, or you tell your parents you want to go to art school and you're thinking about being a motion designer, they think that's the equivalent of going to draw. How are you going to make, and of course you could make a great living as an illustrator, but if coming from a parent's perspective, they might be like, you want to spend how much money on school to learn how to draw? You already can draw. Like, what's going on there? So I think just demystifying the career as a real legitimate career where you can make a very, very good living, like a very good living.
Right on.
And that's a big deal, because I don't think people necessarily know that when they kind of stumble upon it or research it, you know?
Right. That this is actually a viable, you can make a good living as a creative professional. And I think part of it is just knowing that it's not just, hey, I just want to do whatever I want every day. Like, you do need to learn how to be a creative service provider. You need to be able to...
Professional.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, how to work with a brief, how to creative problem solve, how to work with feedback, potentially as a motion designer, how to collaborate. But if you can get those soft skills combined with some of those creative hard skills, you can have a great living.
Yeah, and I think it then comes down to the last thing we've learned that I feel like we could end every single episode with, or begin every single episode with, that you talk about a lot, this idea of adapting or die. You adapt or die.
That's
you either
right.
roll with social media, you roll with the deliverables, you know, evolve your career, or you just stay stagnant.
Absolutely. I mean, I think about essentially my entire, now going about 20-year career, right? Started with standard definition, had to learn how to work with high definition, had to then learn how to work with all the different social media sizes and all the different formats. And even as a professor, right, the last couple years, I had to learn how to adapt from in the classroom to how to teach on Zoom and how to teach remote and how to make pre-recorded videos. And it's... I think, you know, I actually did have a reflection on this that I think is kind of cool, is that that's kind of like working with a brief, right? Every time we get a brief, it's a new project that you have to adapt to what that brief is asking.
What they want.
Yeah. And I think that that's actually trained me and probably most of us about how to adapt in our careers, right? Because that's it's essentially what we do all the time with each project. And it's, I mean, it probably speaks a little bit to generalists too. You know, just that generalist skill set is quite adaptable. So I'm glad to be a generalist personally. Yeah,
me too. Generally speaking.
Generally. Cool.
But we've learned a ton. Me and you, just personally. We've learned that it's not easy to make a fucking podcast. That, you know, it's not just like setting up your computer and like hitting go. It's like way more complicated to just create the content. But then it's also getting it out there, doing a little marketing and social media and putting it out there. It's like that takes a whole other kind of work. So like, props to all the people that can stick with podcasting and like really, you know, make a habit of it, you know, because it's not like something, boom, you turn on the camera and you're done. Like, there's stuff that goes into it. Our editors had a lot of feedback for us. I think the top line stuff was that we not talk over each other, which I've already seen myself doing to you. I think that was more feedback for me. They asked us to not do a seamless take, which I was surprised about, but, you know, the way we've kind of built these as chapterized, and they really like that, and it gives them an opportunity to, you know, and
I was being patient. I was trying not to talk over, but that whole idea of not the seamless take, I mean, my mind goes right to like an After Effects comp where I'm like, oh, it doesn't have to be a seamless camera move. I can have cuts. Yeah. I can have multiple cameras. Yeah. I can have takes. Yeah.
That's great. I mean, that's great because, you know, we could also just record a chunk instead of doing, you know, everything in one day, which, kills our whole weekend most of the time, The other thing they told us to do was to be shorter, to like be more succinct with our stories, and I think that's like something I shouldn't expand on.
Keep it short and sweet.
Yeah. And of course not to repeat what each other says. Like, that's so unnecessary. You could just say good point and move on. Like, just because you say something a certain way doesn't mean I have to then, to emphasize it, make it more important by saying it again. It's just like, no, let Austin have that, move on. I think we have goals that, like, some based on like what we've learned. Not only do we want to be better communicators and better podcasters, vidcasters, we want to become less self-aware of the camera.
Totally. Yeah.
And I think how we do that is to continue to very much prepare, but also have fun and just enjoy each other as friends and collaborators, which is why we started doing this. I think, the feedback we got about the first season is like, as we kind of loosened up and got funner with each other, people enjoyed the episodes more. So.
And that's the same thing I've learned in making pre-recorded videos for my classes, being in a Zoom call. If I'm having fun, much better chance that the audience is having fun. I was going to ask one thing too. What have you gained from this? Like, what have been some of the benefits for you doing this project?
Well, I mean, it makes me more self-aware in the moment when I'm dealing with HR stuff, especially, and business stuff, especially, like kind of this gray area that, like, I call myself a creative director. I am a creative director, but I also like own this company. And so if there's an HR problem that can't be handled just like by HR, it's going to get elevated to me. And so, everything we talk about, all the people that we've been talking about and talking to, in doing our research, like, that's all informing how I run and operate my business on a day-to-day basis.
Cool.
So, what about for you?
Cool. For me, I think one of the things I enjoy is that I have, I'm able to reach a wider audience than just my students, right? Mm. That I'm able to kind of put some of these same ideas and practices and things I've learned, just to a bigger, right? Put it out there, put it out to the world, and that can affect people, and that could reach someone who I, in a day-to-day, normally aren't able to reach.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's lovely. Cut all that out. But okay, so some top line info here. Over 6,000 people watched these videos. Doesn't that blow your mind? Kinda.
I'm like, yeah. Where are all these people?
Yeah, like, how do I hire them? Like, right? What's going on? Our most popular video by far, by like 3 times, was the history of now. And I think I know why.
Why
because Ryan Summers tweeted about it. And that guy has a monster following. I think it's true. I think, like, the more people talk about these individual episodes, like, the more traction they're going to get. But some other popular videos with mistakes. I think we had a good time talking about that, and right. People enjoyed it.
Everybody makes them.
Full-time versus freelance was very important. That 2-part, very very highly viewed. Also very important, right. But high views. And then work from home also got a lot of views.
Imagine that. Everybody's working from home.
I know, but I thought people would be sick and tired of hearing about it. Yeah, work from home, we're home, we get it. But no. And so, over the season, we got a ton of comments, and we were just going to share some of them. So this is like the comments section of today's Reflections episode.
Cool. Yeah. All right, I'll kick it off with a comment from Real Time Real Talk.
Okay.
Yet another awesome episode. I appreciate the fact that you guys actually went in and recut the reel. I don't think I've ever seen another channel go that far to help someone see how they can improve their work. So that's super cool. And I was going to say that's basically like a practice that I've done. I've done a lot of these demo reel cutting workshops with students for lots of years. So it's pretty fun to be able to do that for a bigger audience.
Yeah. That's super cool. On the producers episode, we got a ton of comments, which I think speaks to the desire to maybe hear more about that. But the first comment was, I've considered shifting to a producer here and there. This one stirred a lot of new thoughts around that. Super insightful. And I think that was the point. I mean, if you don't know, you should know that we're, as an industry, in a producer shortage. So it does make sense for some artists who are like highly organized and like very, is it left or right brain? Whatever the side of the brain that makes sense for that statement is. But, you know, that have those like personality traits that we outlined to like really think about it. Another comment was, wow, that's some insight not in the industry yet, but it helps understand the role of the producer. As creatives, I think we sometimes underestimate the value of basic managerial tasks that are having to do with organizing and scheduling. And that is exactly why we did that episode, so that you could, as listeners, if you don't understand how important producers are to the process, that you grow to have an appreciation for what they're doing and treat them with respect and dignity because they make your job a lot easier. I'm surprised, like I got a little feedback from some of my team producers that wasn't like a comment in the comment section, but it was like, oh, you did an episode about producers without
talking to us.
Just talking to a producer. And I was like, oh, okay, noted. So that's going to be something you see in
upcoming episodes.
The
producers roundtable.
Absolutely. Okay, what was the next one? Full-time versus freelance.
Full-time. You want me to take this one?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, full-time versus freelance. Can't wait for part 2. Love this. For someone who's only experienced motion design from School of Motion, this is super helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's fun too that like essentially we've fulfilled both roles, right? You've been full-time, whether it's as an employee or as your own owning your studio. Yeah. I've been freelance essentially the whole time. So for us to be able to talk about the ins, the outs, the pros, the cons, it's because they're two different modalities and ways of working, and they're both valid. And I always think it's just about, you got to find what works, what's the best fit for each person.
For you, for your family, for your life that you want to have. And that's going to change over your life and over the course of the trends in the industry, you know? So I think that's really important to just think about, you know? The next comment was on passion projects. I bought Austin's book a couple months ago, and it's a fairly old MoGraph. And as a fairly old MoGraph geezer myself, it's really great to hear them discussing how to get over burnout. Lovely episode. Keep them going. Yeah, something, again, people don't really talk about, like burnout. Yeah.
It's real. It's real. You got to sustain yourself. Passion, right? Like, I mean, I think that's the opposite of, of burnout is passion. The opposite of passion is burnout. Right.
I love this next comment. Yeah.
You like it? Okay, here we go. History of now. Yes, this podcast, but the audio goes a lot up and down. Would love if you maybe would put a compressor on the audio. Thanks for a great initiative. We're learning.
That was like our first episode that we recorded. So we recorded it like how many times? I'm surprised we were still enthusiastic.
It's like take 612.
It was brutal. Our first couple episodes, we were like, we fucked that one up. I love this next comment. Well, on the work from home, there was just a comment that said, in all caps, remote. Whatever you want to call it, we all had to go home. So,
wait, did this one get you bent out of shape a little bit, like they were yelling?
I take offense to the all caps.
But they could have been shouting like remote, like we love it.
I think it was like, it's not work from home, it's remote, you stupid fuckers. That's how I read that.
I was just saying, I was like, we're all
and I was like, rude. But, I mean, some people work from like a WeWork space and people work from home. I think we were talking more about it as like, literally everybody had to go home and work.
It also kind of like has a rhetorical flow. Work from home. Like it flows.
But that said, we talk about our remote workflow now when we talk about it. Like, people could be anywhere and we work no matter what happens in the world. So on our feedback episode, we got a monster comment. And the way it started, I was like, oh man, here we go.
You want me to read the first line?
Yeah.
It goes, you asked for feedback, so here it comes. It's like, oh shit, we're about to get roasted. And then they wrote, I love your podcast. I'm a father of 3 who is about to go back to full-time freelancing. While I know it is most likely the right move for my career skills in life, I'm also worried. Failing at this point in my life is not an option. And that's big, you know, because I remember, like, you know, being a 20-something, living, you know, by myself in New York City, like, I could take some risks, right? There wasn't, I didn't have a family. I didn't have a mortgage. It was okay to F up, you know? So I get that. I get that kind of feeling. I mean, where I am now, the stakes are a little higher. There are people who count on me.
Awesome. Well, the comment continues. It goes, a lot of my fears come from some of the situations you're describing, and hearing that those situations are common and learning how successful people deal with them is pure gold. On top of that, having the opportunity here to point of view of a studio owner, thank you, is pretty unique and eye-opening. I love the laid-back approach to the format of your podcast. It feels real, relatable, even relaxing. I added even. I really can't think of anything I don't love about it. However, I have a few ideas. I hope that's okay. And again, when I read the however, I was like, oh shit. But no, it's just more ideas for things that we should talk about or cover. It would be great if some, not all of your podcasts were live. Well, that's feedback. But here's the thing, like, I'm very against that. and here's why. I tend to talk very unfiltered. And we like that about the podcast. We have conversation, but I really do need the opportunity to, like, remove some of the things I say because it is not appropriate that I be saying them. Also, we do a lot of preparation, and sometimes, like, we start to get long-winded, and we want to re-record it for it to be shorter because, like, we don't want to. This isn't like a true crimes podcast. This is like a professional.
Wait, what? It's not a true crime. What?
It should be. Maybe season 3 if we run out of stuff. But then he went on. I assume he said he's a father, right? Yes. Yeah. He went on to say that he would like to get the opportunity to ask questions. And I say ask away. Email us. Do all the things. Like, we will create either social content or separate standalone episodes to actually address what you're asking for. So that's like a big deal. He also went on to say, it's a long comment, you should have a patron so that we get a chance to reward you for such amazing content. I was like, I agree with that. Whoever wants to patronize us, patron away.
Well, Patreon, it's like a platform.
Patreon. What does that mean? Yeah. Talk about that.
It's like a creators platform. So if you have a Patreon, you can make content available for your patrons, and you could have different levels. So they can be like, there's free content. There's like $5. You can have tiers. So if they do $5 a month, they get this access. If they do $20 a month, they get more access.
I feel like we're going to have to be much more professional and put together.
If they do like $100 a month, they can, like, come and talk to us on Zoom.
Well, that's cool.
No, I don't know. I'll read the next one. Also, here are a few topic ideas I would love to hear your point of view on. Work-life balance when having a family. We can totally talk a lot about that. Dealing with imposter syndrome. Feeling confident. I don't know. Erin does not get imposter syndrome. She's immune to it. Time management, being an expert as opposed to being a generalist, the pros and cons. I mean,
I feel like we sneak that in here and there, but we could talk more specifically about that. Yeah.
Ways to feel creatively fulfilled in a professional environment.
Yep.
Passion projects.
Okay. Passion projects, maybe? That episode might be for you.
Right.
Tips and tricks for introverted people. I think that's a great one because the introverts kind of sometimes tend to be overlooked in a studio setting or a business setting. So So that's a fair comment. Your story and your dreams for your own career. That's fun. I agree. We should talk about ourselves more.
Right.
What are the things that inspired you most and why? Books, movies, music. I think we should keep like a running list of that somewhere. Maybe It's not so much a podcast. Maybe it's social content.
100 Years of Solitude. Love that book. Love it.
I'm reading, what is it? The Talent Code right now.
Oh,
that
the
Austin
Talent Code.
recommended.
Very good. Good stuff. We got an episode. There's a suggestion for the hold system, and we're planning on doing a whole episode on that.
Yep.
Are you creatively fulfilled?
Depends on the day. But yes, we could talk about that.
They're asking for book recommendations. There's a really good book. It's called Design for Motion.
Yes.
But we can do that. We can get some book recommendations going.
I think that's great. And then he went on to say, but I'll stop here. Thank you guys so much for what you're doing. It's amazing. Thank you. Thank you for that awesome comment. It really, you showed vulnerability in there and talked about, where you're at, and you shared ideas for things that we could talk about to make the show better. And that's absolutely the kind of stuff we want to hear from you, whether it's in the comment section, whether it's email to us, whether it's like on the submission form on the website, all of that. We're down for it. All right, Austin, what do we want to be doing more of in 2022?
Okay, we've got some more interviews lined up.
Yep, especially with producers. We want to talk to them and hear what they think of their profession.
That's right. We've also got a fun mentorship episode set up with Erin taking the lead as a female mentor.
Yeah, I love the idea of that. People have wanted to hear more of that from me, and I've been a little hesitant. So I'm finally excited to go there and chat with women about how meaningful female mentorship looks like, and just what is it? How is it different? Then we're going to get into more real-time, real talk.
That's right. We're going to get back into After Effects. We're going to cut up a reel, give some tips and tricks on that. This should be fun.
We're going to talk more about historical stuff, either pepper it in or maybe have some standalone episodes. I think that was really well received last year.
Right on. More granular on professional practices. We have a whole series of those set up, so we're gonna break that down.
That's awesome. We're going to talk about NFTs. That's it.
That's right.
We're going to talk about
NFTs. NFTs. Very importantly, we're going to talk about how to handle conflicts, right? Because they do happen in any culture, any professional atmosphere. Things go wrong. So what do you do? How do you handle it?
Yeah, not just like in general, but like things might go wrong with a client. Things might go wrong internally with you and your creative director, or you and a peer, or, anything can happen. So we're going to just talk about how to handle conflicts. And then lastly, we are going to talk about the hold system.
That's right.
First
the
hold.
Ins, the outs, first hold, second hold.
I challenge.
Booked. What do you do? How do you handle it? Why? Why is it there? Right? I mean, all of these things, it's really important for studios, but it's also really important for a freelancer to understand why this system is in place, how to navigate it, what's the etiquette, how do you keep your reputation, and then from the studio side.
Yeah. A hold system is really important from the studio perspective. It's how we manage talent that's not full-time. And a lot of studios now, especially as there is like a big push for artists to go freelance, there probably has to be a little bit more empathy on the studio who is trying to book you and to staff jobs. So the hold system, we're gonna do that and really talk about it and get into it. There's gonna be other stuff that we talk about. It's gonna be woven in, but I'm really excited about this season. It's stuff people have been asking for and stuff we've wanted to put out there. So I'm pumped for it.
Right on. And the good news is I just finished writing a new book. I think I might have mentioned it, but that was taking a lot of my time. So now that that's done, I'm excited to be able to put more energy back into this project.
Me too. I think we didn't really close the season like very in a big way last year. We just kind of put up an episode and then we were like, okay, we're going to take a break and come back in the new year. So this year I also want to be much more, communicative with our audience and kind of let them know what we're doing as we're doing it and what to look forward to. So yeah, get that dialogue going a little bit more maybe on social and all the things. So
cool.
All right.
Awesome.
Everybody. Thank you, Austin, for chatting with me and reflecting with me.
Yes.
It's going to be a good year. I'm excited.
Me too.
Okay. Oh my God, we're both so mean. We just recorded this last section like 10 times, but we want to do more of. So this is it. This was the best take. So this is the one. All right, everybody.
We're going with
it. All right. Bye, Austin.
Bye.